So we'll take you to that Lebombo border post now. There are a number of security concerns there in the aftermath of escalating political unrest in Mozambique. The Border Management Authority has urged South Africans to avoid travel to the country. Newzroom Afrika's Madlala is there and joins us now live. I understand that the Border Management Authority is conducting some inspections there. We're expecting to hear the latest from their side on what's going to happen and whether there is the prospect now of that border gate being opened. What are you hearing?
Well, yes, Iman. In fact, the Commissioner is right behind us. He's had some engagement as well with the officials from Mozambique. We saw that interaction taking place in this area. So where we are standing is called a place, it's called No Man's Land. It's just a little bit out of the border where South African border ends and the Mozambican starts. So he is going to give us an update in terms of what is the way forward. But we know that there was a meeting with port management a little earlier on, which also included the MEC. As you can see, the MEC of safety is also there, and we're obviously going to try and get that engagement as it begins. But the MEC of safety just explaining to us that for those that are not at home yet, they must stay put until it is declared. So, Commissioner, can we steal your time? If you could just perhaps give us an idea what is now the way forward.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Ngobile. Maybe what we just need to indicate now is that the status quo remains. The status quo remains where the port is closed as we speak. But what we are actually busy doing now, we are busy engaging with the Mozambicans to actually be able to make a determination of the way forward. The only difference is that the people here at the port, in other words, the leaders at the port level, they are saying that these issues are now getting more complicated and they will not be able to make any significant determination. So on that particular basis, we have just agreed that they are actually bringing their national leadership here. So as you can see, our MEC of Safety and Security is here from Mpumalanga. He's then part of us in terms of providing the leadership. So we are waiting for their leaders from that side to come now at the port. They are actually saying that they will be here in 30 minutes' time. So as soon as they arrive, we are going to make very full discussions with them and be able to make a determination of the way forward on both the movement of cargo, but also in terms of the movement of persons. So that's basically where we are now. So we are not able to make any determination of any changed status. The status is as is, that the port is closed, but the leaders are coming, we will have the meeting, and then out of that meeting, we will be able to agree on the way forward.
Commissioner, there's obviously various things at play here. We've seen some of the people that are still trying to get home. What happens to them in the meantime?
What we have actually advised the people, just on the basis of the current situation that we are in, we have advised them to at least go and use Mananga, port of entry. It is 60 kilometers from here, and most of the taxi drivers had actually started doing exactly that. So they've started going to Mananga, which will then enable them to enter into Eswatini and ultimately enter into Maputo. So, I mean, into Mozambique. So basically, those are the Mozambicans trying to go back home. So that is what we could have, the best we could have done, up to this particular point. But like I'm saying, that is the status, and then once we have met with the people from this side, we will be able to make a final determination. Because today we have to have a final determination. That determination will also be based on what happened yesterday after the big march that they had, and then we should be able to agree on the way forward.
From what the big march, were the outcome favorable if you have got the information, especially in Maputo?
Yeah, we don't have any reflections in terms of what is the final outcome based on what happened yesterday. So the leaders that we said are coming here will be able to give us that determination. Whatever that we currently know are basic, open, I would say things that are in the media, but we cannot make that one to take a decision as serious as this. So we are going to be waiting for them to arrive, and then we'll be able to make a determination.
In your meeting, Commissioner, haven't you raised the issue of fear that probably those who are here in Lebombo fear that they might be going to lands then when they enter Mozambique?
No. Remember, when we talk about the people that are to be going into Mozambique, those are Mozambicans. We are not talking here about South Africans wanting to go to some holiday or anything like that. That one we have already said even yesterday. South Africans are discouraged from planning any kind of travel into Mozambique. So that one is a very clear one. So when we talk about even a possible partial reopening for the movement of persons, we are talking about Mozambicans who are going back home. So in that context, we should not necessarily worry too much about that because they are going to their country and they will know how to traverse the environment. We cannot keep them unless they want to be kept, like the immigration officers that we kept here because of their safety. So that one is very clear. But for the ordinary Mozambicans who say, I want to go back home, we should not necessarily continue to refuse them to do so. But again, for us to be able to do so, it must be an agreement between us and the Mozambicans, primarily on the basis of their ability to receive them and do border management activities on them, particularly immigration activities.
Overnight, have you not experienced anything from the Kasha? Because after the meeting in Maputo, they might have come back to do something?
Yes, remember that was our biggest fear yesterday, hence our very intensive deployment that we did yesterday with the members of the public order policing, with the specialized forces that were here, with the SANDF and the border guards. We were wanting to make sure that if there was to be any skirmishes, it should not come through into the South African side. So that has been our fundamental principle. The good thing is nothing actually happened, meaning that there hasn't been any threat towards the port, and on that basis we are fairly glad in as far as that part is concerned.
What are the truck companies saying with the cargo still being here? Are you engaging with them at all?
You see, as we talk now, actually I was in the team's meeting with them just now at 10:30. Yesterday at around 7 in the evening, we actually met with the Freight Forwarders Association and all of the other associations that are actually responsible for the trucks that are actually here. Even this morning, I actually spoke to Paul, for example, who is one of the biggest exporters company going into Maputo, as it were. Obviously, they are very much concerned. It is costing them a lot of money. But at the same time, as we have said yesterday, for security reasons, you cannot try to compare the loss of money versus the possible loss of life or even the loss of a truck itself. So that is why for us to really come to a final decision, this meeting with the Mozambican leadership that is coming is going to be fundamental for us to be able to agree on the way forward.
Commissioner, Mozambican nationals who want to come back home, are there any other, I'm not sure what to say, requirements that might convince you to say that we can open for them? What's their plan? If somebody says, I need to be at the funeral this weekend, I need to come for medical attention, I need to, but what will convince you as the management at the border to allow them to come in?
Maybe let's put it clear, because sometimes there is the understanding that this whole issue of closing the border is a South African decision. It's not. It's not a South African decision. We don't have any problem. We can open the border at any time. Remember, let me give you a typical example of yesterday. When the protesters were approaching Rasen Garcia, the immigration officers, the customs officers, 15 of them literally abandoned their stations and ran on the South African side, as it were. Now, if the people had abandoned their station and run here, if we process a person on the South African side, where are they supposed to go? Because the office that side is not there to process them. And that is what we are talking about. So that is why, even when we talk about partial reopening or anything of that sort, it is fully dependent on what the Mozambican leadership is telling us. So yesterday we had to take the decision to close after the partial opening on Wednesday night, primarily because they ran out of their stations because of security concerns. And that is what led us to close the port, as it were. So even now, it is closed because that status quo still remains. However, based on what happened yesterday and the fact that there was no threat closer to the port, the leadership that is coming here will be able to give us guarantees. And once that is done, we will be able to process the people in particular. And then we will be able to engage on the issues of cargo and be able to agree on the way forward. But of course, if somebody is seriously saying, I want to go back home and now, we give them a very clear option. Mananga is here. It is 60 km away from Lebombo. You enter in there, you are able to enter back into Mozambique. There is no any threat or any challenges on that side as we are briefed. So they will be able to enter that side. The biggest problem here is because this corridor, the N4 corridor, is the fundamental corridor for business, for trade, for everything. And that is why, as we keep on saying, the reason why the people actually targeted this corridor is because they know it has the biggest impact. If you go to the north, there is Pafuri, for example. Again, you go to the north, there is Goriondo, for example. There's no issue. If you go to the south, there is what we call Kosi Bay on our side, and it is actually called Ponto Duro on the Mozambican side. Actually, in the town of Ponto Duro, as we speak, it's actually as quiet as if it is not even in Mozambique. I mean, I've been talking to our colleagues that side. They say there's nothing like that side. So we are saying those are the options. The only issue is some bit of hours that people must add to be able to achieve them crossing on the other side. You better sacrifice 60 kilometers of time than having to enter into a space that will lead you into a very dangerous space. And that is the reality. But despite that, we are saying if Mozambicans are telling us they are ready to process their people, we have no reason not to process them from our side. That is the fundamental issue. That is why the officials that are here are saying we cannot make that determination because the situation is too complicated. We would want our leaders to come here and be able to give that decision. And their leaders are on the way. They said in 30 minutes they will be here. We will be meeting with them, with the MEC here, and we will be able to get to a decision as to what do we do on two fundamental issues. One, on people movement, and two, on goods movement. We should be able to talk to you on the outcome of that conversation.
Just lastly, is there any South Africans that are that side?
So from where we are sitting now, we don't have any indication of a South African that is under siege, as an example. I have been able to follow the conversation of our ambassador, General Nyanda, who is the ambassador, the High Commissioner actually in Mozambique. He had indicated that even at that level, they have not got any indication of South Africans under siege, as it were. The only issue that we had, if you remember, on Wednesday, was the issue of the trucks that were South African trucks that were empty, that wanted to come back. When we did a partial reopening, all those trucks came back. We were able to also repatriate around 6 petroleum trucks that carry fuel and all of those. As we speak, they're in kilometer 7. We had to take them out of kilometer 4 on the Mozambican side because of the danger that such kind of trucks have. Because if people don't understand, they can easily go tamper with the petroleum things and the whole thing can explode and people will die in numbers. That is why we had to take those ones out of Mozambique. We put them here until everything is stabilized, then we can be able to make a determination. But otherwise, if there is a South African, for example, let's say now, in practical terms, who can run here and say, guys, I am in trouble. We are not going to be bureaucratic about that. We are going to allow the person to come in because otherwise the person is here saying, I'm running away and all of that. So we are not necessarily in a bureaucratic enterprise. The key issue here is security. And that is why we say we cannot just take people into an environment that we know it is very much dangerous. And I think the good thing for yourselves is that you were able to speak to one of the truckers who actually was attacked in kilometer 4, who actually had to sleep in the bush for almost 12 hours, and yesterday was able to escape. When he arrived here, we were able to allow him in, and he was basically saying, I'm glad I am back home. That is what we are talking about. So when we talk closure, the reason why we are here is for us to be able to deal with such eventuality. It's not a closure wherein we close the port and everybody is gone and it becomes a ghost town. No, our officials are also here. That's why SNDF is here, SAPS is here, the border guards are here, and that is why I'm here, the MEC is here, is to demonstrate that this is not a ghost-based closure where we close the port and there's nothing happening. We are here to be able to make sure that we take care of the environment, we manage the environment and get the situation stabilized and go back to normal. It is not in our interest to close the border. The mandate that we carry, even in terms of the Border Management Authority Act, it says facilitate, manage the legitimate movement of persons. So we are at work when we facilitate people. When we close the port, it is a problem in terms of our mandate, as it were. So that is why our intention is to get Mozambicans to help us to stabilize the situation. Then we go back to normal.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for speaking to us. Well, Iman, a lengthy and very detailed explanation of what will happen now going forward. So we're expecting that meeting to get underway in about 30 minutes, where officials from Mozambique can be able to give an indication of what to do or liaise really with the South African government.
Yeah, really important stuff that Masiapato was sharing there as well about meeting with the Freight Forwarders Association. A lot at stake commercially. That is an important trade route, but ensuring that there is that understanding that human lives trump all other concerns. So we'll come back to Nqobile a little bit later on for development in that story. A lot riding on movement across that corridor.